Great. Okay, so I think we'll start. So we're so happy to have one of the leaders in cybersecurity, Bruce Schneier. So how are you, Bruce?
I am good.
Good. And normally the way that we run this is I'll ask a few questions and then maybe dip in and out. But if any students or participants would like to ask any questions, then just put your questions in the little chat box. So my first question for you, Bruce, is that there's been a recent scam where a finance worker was conned out of 25 million with a deep fake. So do you think this will see the rise of deep fake frauds? And what should we be looking for to be able to spot these types of threats?
Well, it's either the rise of it or it's the pinnacle of it, right? I mean, uh, so what happened? For people who don't know what happened, this was a fake video conference where everybody except the victim was an AI, and the victim was a financial person in a company and was basically convinced to wire $25 million to the scammer's account. Not a new crime, right? We've seen this happen via email, via text message, via audio, and now via video. Right. So what is the going on here? It's ignorance on the part of the victim, not realizing that this could be a scam. It was probably a pretty effective scam. I mean, if you're going to do that, you have to, be convincing enough that you you're using the language, you're using the company names, right? You're just using enough to convince that this is real. So, right, does AI make this easier? Yeah, right. I mean, AI means I could be an AI right now, and you're not going to know, right? Is this conference real? The person who asked on text is exactly the right question to ask, and maybe it's not. Maybe an AI is behaving as me. I am trying to train one of the GPT unique bots on my writing. So, like, this might be possible in a year or so, right? I can now zoom into many more classes than before using my avatar. Uh, but so certainly this is a rising criminal tactic. The question now is the defense, is the skepticism going to similarly rise, and who's going to who's going to win, right? And this will be temporal. This will depend on when. This is now a snapshot, and we don't know. My guess is that this tactic will be used as long as it's useful. I mean, I still get scam text messages that are kind of dumb, and that the tactics probably don't work anymore, except for some really gullible people, but they still do them. Uh, so I don't know what to say about whether this is a harbinger or a one-off. Yeah, it's a harbinger in the near term, and we will see what happens in the next couple of years as people learn about this, hear about this, get educated. We just get less gullible financial employees at companies.
And it was really unfortunate that David Kahn died recently. I, for one, am totally hooked on cipher cracking. How did he inspire you at the time when you first read his book?
So for people to know, David Kahn wrote a book in the 1960s called The Codebreakers. Really the first book about modern cryptography that was written, that looked at what happened during World War II, and sort of from the beginning of time, really through World War II, in a way that no one had before. And it was an amazing book. It's the Yates. It's not on my shelf here. It's at home. Uh, so it really influenced everybody who was thinking about secret codes at the time. And I mean, influenced me. I saw him last 4 or 5 years ago. He was not doing well. He suffered from dementia. And his books were an amazing thing when nothing else was out there. And that's the important thing to understand. There was nothing else out there.
I see there's been documents saying that the NSA were worried about the Furby. Can you remember the Furby toys?
I do remember the Furbies, right? You know,
Yeah.
and they were right to. I mean, those little devices would listen. They would listen, they would respond. So the NSA was worried, this is, I think, the 90s, that these Furbies were surreptitious listening devices. And yes, there is now someone filed a Freedom of Information Act in the United States and got a bunch of documents on the NSA's banning of Furbies, which are actually pretty entertaining to read now in 2024.
And surely the devices that we have in our home now and the toys and the devices, you can get robot vacuum cleaners. Surely now there's a greater risk than there was then.
Yes, but those are not allowed in the NSA either, right? So yes, there's a greater risk now, and the NSA doesn't let you bring your cell phone. Now they have little lockers in the lobby where you put your cell phone in when you walk into the building. And there's going to be no robot vacuum cleaner, and there's going to be no, any of that stuff. So, right, the Furby is just sort of the first instance of that bigger trend of sort of everything watching you, everything paying attention.
Yeah. And I think Facebook made a massive profit recently, and they've really recovered. And I think there's consumer reports that point to the fact that Facebook is triangulating your data. Do you think this is becoming a massive spying network that is being created and really we're being harvested for our data?
No, I don't think it's becoming one. I think it's been one for a couple of decades, right? So nothing new here, right? Facebook spies on you. That's its business model. So no, it is not becoming one. It has been one for quite a long time. And this is actually a report worth reading. If I get a chance, I'll throw it in the chat. Consumer Reports, Consumer Organization of the United States, wrote a really long piece sort of on the information ecosystem of which Facebook is in the center of, and all the information, all the other companies that send information to Facebook. And it is well worth looking at. And I really do recommend it. It's a lot of interesting work.
Yeah, it's great. And I noticed there was a paper on gerrymandering, and we have the US and the UK elections coming up. I think you read that paper. Can you
Yeah, do you gerrymander, or is that just something the United States does? I don't even know.
in the UK, yeah, it happens, and we're continually changing our boundaries, and it will often benefit the party that's in control. So I just wonder if there's a scientific way that we could improve these methods.
So this was actually a really interesting paper that that looked at gerrymandering, very much generalized on the cut and choose protocol. Right. So how do you divide a bag of pot? Right. Someone makes two piles, and the other person picks a pile. Right. It's a super easy protocol that is fair and doesn't require a neutral third party. And that's actually generalizable. There's a really good paper book called Fair Division, which generalizes that to 3 and 4 and 5 and other complications. There's fair and envy-free. But basically, there are these self-enforcing protocols of dividing something. And cut and choose is the instance you all know, because it's obvious and you've done it like from when you were children. Gerrymandering, right? The creation of fair districts, right, is a similar problem. And sorry, some John asked, pot is marijuana. That's what I called when I was a kid. Sorry. So fair districts has either been, in the United States at least, someone draws the boundaries and the courts decide if they are fair, or the jurisdiction, in our case it's a state, gets some neutral boundary drawing agency to try to draw fair boundaries. Someone here at the Kennedy School actually came up with an analog to cut and choose. And that was, I call it divide combine. One side creates districts that are half the size, and the other side combines them into districts. And it turns out that division of labor, very similar in concept to cut and choose, results in fair districts. Really great work. I mean, super phenomenal. I was impressed. Now, like, it's not going to happen, right? The politics of this is a big deal, but it's kind of neat to see that the security protocol of this was just solved. So I was really happy to read that paper. And I assume you saw it because I blogged it.
Yep. So it's interesting, and I see that there was a Russian intelligence agency that that had been responsible for SolarWinds that have been pinpointed in hacking Microsoft
Yeah, a
executives.
bunch of
What do you
others.
know?
I don't know the details, but yes, it seems like that. And I think that's the Russian military intelligence. But yes, I don't remember the details.
And there's some information pinpointing the NSA as gathering mass surveillance data on citizens without a warrant. Do you think this is a new trend, or do you think the US can clamp down on it?
This reminds me of the Facebook question. NSA's been doing that for decades, right? We learned that from Snowden. So definitely not a new threat, right? Same thing that's been happening for decades. Haven't been able to clamp down on it yet. I don't know what, I don't think anything's going to change now, but no, it's definitely not new.
In terms, it's taken us 40 or 50 years to build up this public key infrastructure. We're using elliptic curve, RSA methods, ELGAML, and so on. And now it could come all crumbling down with post-quantum cryptography.
Nah,
How
it's
do you
not going to.
no?
No, honestly, I've always thought that was a big red herring.
Yeah.
I'm not. I mean, we're getting very good at post quantum algorithms. There's no indication that quantum computers are anything like close to happening. We don't know if Shor's algorithm is actually doable. There's a whole lot of we don't know between here and there. So I don't believe in the quantum apocalypse. I just feel that is not paying attention to what's going on in reality.
Okay, we've got some questions coming in. So do you think the current AI boom is technology-led or hype-led?
Can it be both?
Yeah.
Right? I think it can be both. I think there's a lot of technology here that's going to change a lot of things and in ways that we can't predict. There's also a whole lot of hype because like this is the next bubble after blockchain turned out to be a dud. But unlike blockchain, I don't think this is a dud. I think AI technology has advanced amazingly in the past 12 months. And right now, the amount of sort of tech to be done overhanging the science is enormous. And there's a lot of science being done. So I think there's a lot of real here. This is not the same as blockchain, which is like stupid from the beginning. This is real.
Okay, so another question, as AI is being incorporated into everything, when do you expect it to see it actually transform profits and businesses?
No one has any idea, right? It took computers, what, 2 decades before they did that? So nobody knows. Anybody who says they know is lying, right? I mean, that's a very complex question. Nothing to do with either the tech or the science. But I would hesitate to predict.
Yeah. Okay. And so we have one about zero knowledge proofs. I don't know if you've been able to look at zero knowledge proofs
They've been
recently.
around since the 80s, so yes.
Yeah, yeah. Do you
And
think
I
there's
wrote about them
any?
in my book in 93.
Yeah. Do you think there's any practical applications of them at the current time that would be useful?
I don't know. I mean, they are valuable. I mean, and you'll see them used in anonymous protocols. very complex protocols with very subtle security properties. The problem is they're hard to understand, right? They're hard to explain, which makes them hard to use because they're less likely to be trusted. Like even though the math is trustworthy, the explanation is too complicated. So instead of zero, I mean, think about signatures. Instead of doing any of the secure protocols of signatures, we use DocuSign, where you just like click a button and it pretends to sign your name. I mean, and that's what we use because that's understandable, even though it is less secure. So I mean, the answer is yes, but it'd be interesting to see sort of where it shows up, and I don't know where it'll show up.
Yeah. And what's the use of all these crypto algorithms when big tech government can't see what we're can't see what we're talking with each other?
Is your
Is there
question or
anything?
somebody else's question?
Yeah, no, this is from the chat.
All right, I'm gonna go read them. Let me
Yeah.
because I don't understand you. I don't understand your
Okay.
question.
Can you see the questions?
I do. So the question is from Harish, and basically the question is about traffic analysis. And I did a class on this yesterday here at the Kennedy School, and encryption will protect the contents of the conversation, right? So this Zoom is encrypted. So what I'm saying to you and what Bill is saying to me is encrypted. What's not encrypted? The date, the time, all of our IDs, right? That can't be encrypted because otherwise Zoom can't work, right? Zoom needs the metadata to operate. So that is true. There's a lot that can be gleaned from traffic analysis, right? If I have all the database of all the Zoom meetings, even though I don't know what is being said, I could learn a lot. So the point of cryptography, to answer this question, is to protect the data. No, it does not protect the metadata. And that is just the way it is. There are ways to protect metadata. I wrote a piece on decoupling. It is more complicated. But in general, right, I mean, like you can encrypt your phone, but your phone has to know your location. Otherwise, it can't ring when somebody calls you, right? So the operation of a cell phone requires the network to know where you are, right? We're not gonna change that. You want me to just go through questions as I see them?
Yeah,
Or
please. Yeah, just go ahead with the questions. Yep.
All right, so Chris asked about quantum cryptography also. Should we migrate as soon as possible? I mean, not yet, because we don't have good post-quantum algorithms. We're sort of still learning a lot about designing cryptographic algorithms to be secure in a post-quantum environment. I wouldn't migrate yet. I don't trust the standards out of NIST just yet. I think everybody's basically saying that, but it's okay. I think the science is leading the tech. Is there any way to mitigate the harvest now, decrypt later attacks? Yeah, don't say it. I mean, if someone has a big enough hard drive that they're recording this Zoom conversation, because in 10 years, they got a quantum computer that's going to break the encryption, there's nothing we can do except not have this Zoom conversation. Not terribly useful, but if you think about it, there's not going to be very many organizations on the planet who are going to do something like that. But it is a worry. So maybe we move to longer key lengths. But migrating is hard. What we know about migrating cryptography in the real world is it's actually really hard. Even Zoom would be hard for it to update its cryptographic systems, let alone an internet standard, which requires coordination. So, right now, let the techies figure out the cryptography before you start moving. All right, Namana asks also about quantum computers. I want to recommend to all of you an essay that I wrote called Cryptography After the Aliens Land. I mean, go look up that name on Google and find it. There I talk about the reality versus the hype of quantum computers. And I'd rather send you to that than regurgitate it here. AI, there's really no application of AI in encryption. I mean, it's not going to break things faster. So, I mean, there's the one area I don't think you're going to see AI changing things. Mark is asking about sort of my book, Click Here to Kill Everybody, which is my book on Internet of Things and security, and have things changed since then? I don't think anything has. I mean, we're still building a world where computers affect things in a direct physical manner. Even AI makes it even more stark, that they're going to affect more things in more ways instead of, like very simplistic ways like a thermostat. So I mean, that is a development. That's it. Is the rise of AI is going to be more complex decision making on the part of the computers. I don't understand Sean's question, so if you want to ask it again, I will look at it when I get down there. Amanda asks about NSO Group being classified as a national security threat. So we are. I mean, I just saw this morning. The U.S. State Department has announced that they're going to sanction individuals working for companies like this. That's interesting, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. I mean, I just read their announcement this morning. I'll probably talk about it in class tomorrow. But yes, I mean, there are national security implications of giving spyware to nations around the planet. Natick asks more about why blockchain's a dud. And so to answer your question, no, there are absolutely no useful applications of blockchain. I mean, weird for me to say it, there's actually nothing it does that can't be done better, more securely another way. I know the blockchain bros want you to think otherwise. It's not secure. It's not distributed. It's not, I mean, all the things it just isn't. I don't want to turn this into a blockchain talk, but I do have this written up. So again, search me in blockchain and you'll see my writings on it. But no, it actually does have no value. And notice it, whenever you see a useful blockchain application, if you dig down, you notice it actually doesn't use the blockchain. It's blockchain for marketing purposes only, because actually using it causes more security problems than it solves. So, I mean, we knew this years ago, and the market kind of figured it out last year. But no, there's absolutely no value there. Question about AI, and I mean, AI is not going to allow Turing machines to do far more than previously thought possible. Right? Quantum is a different way of computing, and that's its value. So they're not really in opposition in any way. All right, Sean just left a comment but I don't have the context from above, so I can't answer it either. Sean, you got to do the whole question in one text in a way that I can read and understand without remembering what went previously. Anusha writes about strong cryptography, data insecure because of monopolization. Yes, that is correct. I mean, sort of by definition, your email has to be unencrypted when Google gets to it. Otherwise, they can't do all the work of removing spam and putting in threads and showing it to you in your Gmail window in a way you like. So yes, that is correct. We generally want intermediaries to do work on our data, which requires it to be unencrypted. And you're stuck with that. Now, you could have your message encrypted to your object, but then you're not going to get all the benefits of Gmail. And actually, Google offers that as an option for people at high risk. What do you do about that? You can't do anything about it. That's the world. Right? Either your endpoint does the work, in which case the middle, you can secure from the middle, or something in the middle does the work, in which case you need it insecure in the middle. There are ways we can sort of do some things through secure containers and virtualization, kind of ways we can protect ourselves from people in the cloud looking at our data. But in general, we're stuck. Right? This is the world. So I don't have a good answer there, except you have to live with it. Where are we in my questions? Hang on. I just lost all the questions. Okay, here we go. Would the next step be to throw the metadata into LLMs? I'm sure that is happening right now. Right? That seems like a perfectly reasonable thing. for an intelligence agency, for a market researcher, for a data broker to do with our data. Give it to an LLM and see what insights are going to extract. I'm sure those experiments are being done today. I don't know the answer. I'm not paying attention, but sure. I mean, that is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. AIs are really good at looking at lots of data and producing insights. Maybe it's not LLMs because that's a next word predictor, but some kind of AI on data. I know that the United States CIA is working on this. I had the chief technologist speak my class last semester. Those are the kind of things they're thinking about, guaranteed, right? Because the human problem is the problem. Any advice on how to study cryptology for those who cannot afford to go to college? Right? Read the books, read the papers. I don't have any real advice. Cryptology is learned by doing. So I expect you to engage in cryptanalysis. And the thing about cryptanalysis is the proof is in the results. You break something, you get published. Because you've broken it. There's no one's going to argue with it. It's not like a paleontology theory where your pedigree matters. And don't design anything until you've broken a dozen things no one's broken before. Designing is easy. Designing securely is hard. Knowing if you design securely means you know how to break things. So cryptanalysis, learn to break stuff. A lot of math here. So might require graduate degrees. But, opinion of homomorphic encryption, great idea, not terribly useful. I mean, we like this in theory, computing on encrypted data in a way that the computing platform doesn't see the data. It's really only useful in toy problems right now. Unclear if it'll ever be generally useful. So I like the research. There aren't really any good use cases yet, except, very stylized ones. But that might change, right? I mean, science moves forward. I'm not optimistic, but I'd love to be proven wrong. Oh, I'm going to skip some questions because they're kind of annoying. Sorry. Are there not applications of AI to decryption? Not really, right? Because it's not a problem that requires more AI-like thinking. Right? Either it is a brute force problem, it just needs raw computation doing very simple things, password guessing, or it requires the level of mathematical thinking that AI is nowhere near yet. So no, right now there are no applications of AI to decryption, by which I think you mean cryptanalysis. So not yet. And maybe someday, but no time soon. Is not an easy problem. Eric's writing about more citizen records being leaked. I mean, right? This happens every day. This is the one I guess, in the news in your country. We have ours. Stuff happens everywhere all the time. So yes, again and again, we learn that companies who don't take good enough care have data being leaked. So yeah, it's not really an encryption problem. It's more of an authentication problem, a computer security problem. But yes, it's certainly a big. Oh, you guys are chatting amongst yourselves. Go to town. The question about Tor. So it's interesting. Tor is anonymity based on crowds. I mean, if you know how Tor works, basically the entire Tor network moves data around encrypted inside its network, so you can't link where the data goes in the network, where it comes out. And that works as long as all of those network nodes are independent and not colluding. We know from Snowden documents, 2014, the NSA is running exit nodes, right? So they can watch the data and do some correlation between entry and exit. I'm sure other countries doing the same thing. I don't know if AI helps that. I mean, already we were able to do the correlation a decade and a half ago without AI, and there's no new correlation we need to do because it's pretty simple correlation. But it really is about the more of the network you control, the more likely you see both ends of an exchange which means you can now connect the in versus the out. Not something that gets better with AI. It's already really good. Depends on how much of the network you control. And we don't actually know really at all how much of the network is controlled by the NSA. We hope it's a low percentage, but we don't really know. Hang on, it's kind of, there we go. This works better. Another question about homomorphic encryption. I think I answered that. Another blockchain question. No, there's no really. I mean, there's enormous novelty to the proof of work idea. There just aren't any applications that can't be done better without the blockchain. Right? It's incredible. It's a brilliant idea. Right? The linking the Merkle trees, right? The hash chains, which are from the 80s, with a consensus protocol kind of from the 70s, with this notion of a currency that aligns incentives, right? Very, very clever, but no applications that can't be done better another way. I'm sorry. Okay, now we're higher than we were. Sean, you can't have comments. I don't even know what we're talking about. Or maybe, Sean, just unmute yourself and ask your question. That may be easier.
Which one is it, Bill? Which one?
I have no idea.
I
mean, I'm going by these things so fast. I have no idea.
One of the comments was just to thank you for answering my previous question.
Oh, okay. Another question on homomorphic encryption. What is the reality of adoption across every device we use? Probably nil. It is so computationally expensive. So unless you really need it and it really works in your narrow application, you're not going to use it. Right? Just like public key cryptography, you just use it for key exchange because it's too computationally intensive to use for data. So you back off. So it's going to be the same. How do we know what services to trust? It beats me, right? How do you know what doctors to trust? Word of mouth? Looking at their credentials? Reading up on them? Hoping for the best? All we're doing with sort of any of these things. And it's about VPNs. It's a good question about VPNs. Which VPN do you trust and why? And the answer is you don't know. Right? I use NordVPN. Do I trust it for some reason? Then kind of not really. I just use it. But yeah, and of course your VPN can spy on you. And this is true for a lot of things. How do you trust your email provider? How do you trust your hardware, your software? A lot of trust embedded in tech systems, and we don't have good ways of generating that trust and ensuring that trust. So we do what we can and hope for the best is really the answer to that. How does the right to be forgotten survive when your data is used to train LLMs? Can we force companies to have ways to unlearn our data? It's actually a more interesting question than you think. I have seen research with large language models and forgetting. And the question is, right, can you take an LLM and have it forget a fact? So in the paper, they're trying to get it to forget Harry Potter. So can they find the places in this vast, right, numerical construct that is Harry Potter, whatever that means, and change the numbers so Harry Potter isn't there anymore? Really interesting research. Their results I thought were promising. And if that's true, if you can do that, you can have it forget individual things. And what they want to do is they want to avoid the problem. Remember, it takes hundreds of millions of dollars to build one of these LLMs, that there's a lawsuit. They're told by the court to forget Harry Potter, and they've got to like rerun the whole model at the cost of $200 million. They'd rather just go in there and forget Harry Potter. So there's a big business case in getting LLMs to forget. Once you do, like we have some idea of like what memory, whatever that means, looks like in these systems. So yes, it seems like we can force companies to unlearn our data. Not yet, but the research is really promising. I'm excited about that. John asks about FIDO replacing passwords, and FIDO is another, I mean, these other app authentication systems, either tokens or biometrics. I don't think they ever fully replace passwords. I think passwords always have value, but moving away from them for a lot of these systems is really important. I mean, right now, a lot of you don't use passwords, you use your email. Now, you know this. You go to a site, and instead of typing in a password, you click, I forgot my password. Right? You get an email, and you click on the link, and you get in. And there are sites that have like ditched passwords in favor of that. Like I use OpenTable to make a hotel dinner reservation yesterday. And I have an OpenTable password, doesn't ask for it anymore. It just sends me an email with a PIN, and I type the PIN in and go. And so you're already seeing these sort of post-password systems. But I don't think passwords ever go away. There'll always be some value for them. Steve asks, does privacy really matter? I invite Steve to type his sexual fantasies and produce a naked picture in the chat. And when he doesn't, we will prove that privacy does still matter, right? Privacy is about our ability to protect ourselves, even though we're handing data off to big corporations in ways that they're taking advantage of it. I wrote a whole book on privacy, so I mean, the longer answer is there, but of course, privacy does matter. And of course it does. Most of you have your video off, demonstrating that privacy matters. Otherwise, you'd have your video. Otherwise, it wouldn't be an option to turn your video off in Zoom. Right? The fact that the option's there and you're all taking advantage of it. I think you all are. Does anybody have their camera on? Not a single one of you. Right? So privacy does matter. How soon will we see secure computing? Wow, what does that even mean? So either we're seeing it already or we never will, depending on what you mean by it. Oh, there's comments. Homomorphic encryption. Oh, I think it's gonna be a long time before it's actually viable, if ever. Right? It is the math is so complicated and stylized. You have to sort of, I'm not even going to go into it. No time soon. We don't know how to do it right yet. And it might be impossible. How can the zero-day market be controlled, given that nation states are the biggest buyers? You ask a great question, and your question has the answer in it. It can't be. As long as the US is the biggest buyer, right, the market's there. And it will be exploited. You know, my belief is that we should buy and then disclose, like buy and fix. Like we should destroy the market in 0 days by being the biggest buyer on the defensive side. But very few people are willing to do that. I mean, a lot of others agree with that, but the government's not going to do that. If you are a new student to cryptography, what are the interesting areas for innovation or study? There are lots of them. I mean, wander around, right? Study what you think is interesting. You know, in general, I mean, I don't know, you probably don't want to hear this, but we have all the cryptography we need. The real problems are not cryptography. They're about using cryptography, right? They're about implementation. They're about update. They're about the human factors. I mean, I've got kind of all the math I need right now. Another reason blockchain doesn't help. I don't have a problem that more math can solve. And why blockchain fails, because it doesn't solve any of the human problems. But it really is the implementation and use of cryptography in the real world. That's where the problems are. So they're not the math problems. They're very much the engineering problems, the social problems, the political problems, the economic problems. Well, I like that you guys are answering your own questions. This is awesome. Somebody asked another cryptocurrency question. No future in wider usage. Dumb idea. Sooner it goes away, the better. what's your opinion on the enormous energy footprint being used for LLM's AI? I'm not convinced it's real. I mean, a lot of energy is spent on computing, but compared to the energy being wasted on blockchain, everything else is a rounding error. So I see it as a talking point, energy wasted in AI, but it's not more than in search. It's not more than in cloud. It's not more than in any of these other things we do. And in the scheme of things, it's not that much. So I want to see some real data before I use the phrase enormous energy footprint for LLMs and AI. I'm not convinced that is real. Quantum key distribution. Isaac, this other quantum question. This is, again, my answer is similar. And the essay on quantum cryptography talks about this. I don't think it's ever going to be widely used. And the reason is it doesn't solve a problem I have. So quantum key distribution requires specialized hardware. And you say to your question, because you talk about optic communication. But right now, the math is great. I can do great key distribution, secure against a quantum computer, against whatever you want, using math. I don't need specialized hardware. So it is orders of magnitude cheaper. And I can put it on like my phone or on base stations, cellular base stations all over the planet. So given that the math is good enough, we are not going to see specialized hardware taking over. There's no benefit. I mean, if the math wasn't that great, we needed QKD, then you'd see it being deployed. But it's interesting physics, but I don't need it. I mean, there isn't a problem it's going to solve. So I don't expect it to be widely used ever. I think it'll be used in some toy applications. I think it'll be used, for marketing purposes. We can say this. Companies can say they do it on some, optic trunk systems, but the math is good enough. George asks, can you share the name of the paper by any chance, please? George, I need to know what the topic of the paper is. Peter asks about LLMs being black boxes. Right? We don't that right now that's true. We don't know how temporary that is. We are learning a lot about how to, understand the fine structure in LLMs. And that paper research on forgetting is an example of that. Can I figure out where using human words, a certain memory is? So, as we learn more, we'll be able to do more fine-tuning, more training, more updating of an LLM. And I think that's going to be really interesting. Right now, we're in a world where creating a new LLM is very computationally expensive. That seems to be temporary. That cost is going down dramatically. We're learning from the Llama model that a base model that is just tuned and updated every day works almost better. So don't know. The black box nature, AI is moving extraordinarily fast, and it's hard to make predictions like more than 6 months out. My bet is on we're going to learn a lot about how the black box works, and that the cost of creating new models is going to come down dramatically in price. Do we know if the NSA still has any involvement with developing new algorithms? Not in, I'm not sure how to answer your question. NSA, of course, develops their own algorithms all the time. They, decade and a half ago, published a couple, Skipjack, and a couple others with names I forget. Do they develop public algorithms? No. And we know that because they come out of the research community, often not out of the United States. Right? AES were a couple of cryptographers from Belgium, right? Unlikely to be NSA shills. Ricardo asks about how do you know what services you can trust? Same thing. We have no idea. We just do the best we can. What are my thoughts on Neuralink? I have no thoughts on Neuralink. All right, now you people are just chatting with each other. SC asked a question probably around SSI, self-sovereign identity. Kind of concept makes no sense if you think about it, because authentication is always in reference to some third party. If you're authenticating to yourself, you're not proving anything. Not sure the rest of your question's about. It might be about blockchain. I can't tell. All you have to remember, when you type something in the chat, I see it 10 minutes later. So I have no idea the context. What's my thoughts on zero trust? I think it's the dumbest name for a really interesting idea. So for those who don't know, zero trust doesn't mean zero trust. It means continuous verification, right? So you think about, I don't know, this Zoom, you were all admitted when you joined, and that was like in the beginning, I'm admitting someone right now, like some authentication step. Like I verify that you're you and I let you in. It was not a lot of verification, but that's kind of basic idea. In zero trust, we kind of do that all through the Zoom call, right? So if you make a comment, that might be additional verification. If something happens, there's more verification. Think about your bank. You instead of logging in and you do whatever you want, you log in, but if you do a withdrawal, there might be some more verification. If you do a big withdrawal, there'll be a lot more verification. And that's what's called zero trust. But it's very much continuous authentication. I think it's a great idea because instead of authenticating the person, you're authenticating the action, right? That feels more powerful. It's harder to do. And here we can imagine like AI being useful here. Maybe an AI can point out, hey, right, this is a non-standard activity by this person. They're doing it at midnight. They never have before. They're sending money to an account in Nigeria, and they never have before. So maybe some additional authentication is required. You get some notion of that. If you log into Facebook from not your normal device, it asks for some additional authentication. And that's the basic idea. I think it's really good. Right? If you do normal things from your normal place, maybe we don't have to authenticate as much. If you're doing something non-standard, we do more authentication. So I tend to be a fan. A lot of questions on zero knowledge proofs, homomorphic encryption. Bill, you've been teaching these people stuff. What would it take for the broad public to really take their online security seriously? So that's an interesting question. And I'm going to throw it back at you, Vincent, is why do we demand that they do that? Like, I don't demand that you take your car safety seriously. I just don't sell you an unsafe car. So only in computer do we blame the user here. I want the engineers to design computers and computing systems such that you cannot take it seriously and you're still secure. Right? Even if you don't take restaurant safety security, you're probably not going to get poisoned eating out, because we don't demand that you personally go into the kitchen and inspect it. We do that in computers. All right, so really think about design. And I tend to look at these sort of blame the user, user education, make the user smarter as excuses for bad design. Right? I mean, we've spent years trying to teach people not to plug USB sticks into computers, which is idiotic. Like, they're USB sticks. What are they for? Or not to click on URLs. It's a URL. What are you supposed to do with it? Like, how can we design a computer such that plugging a USB stick into it is a dangerous act? That is bad design, right? That is not user ignorance. That's the problem. Oh, wow. So Meron asked the question, which I kind of just answered, right? This usability is really the question. Right? How do we motivate designers to take security seriously and not blame users? And as Meron says, to use complex crypto techniques where they're crucial. This is very much an economic problem, right? As long as the market doesn't reward it, you're not going to get it. And what we do in our society when the market doesn't reward safety and security is that government mandates it. right? So you can't sell an unsafe car, right? I flew last week. There's a whole lot of laws about the safety of that airplane so that I don't have to worry about it. So how do we motivate the engineers? We force them to. We pass laws. And that really is what we need to do here. As long as the market rewards insecurity, right, rewards features and time to market and not security, you're not going to get good security, like period. So I see this very much as a market problem, and and government solves these market failures. Niall asks if we eventually merge with AI or are replaced by AI. I just want to let you all know that I, for one, welcome our robot overlords. But that is the interesting question. I don't have the book with me. It's a good book called Human-Centric AI. Ben Schneiderman writes about how we can build AI to augment people rather than to replace people. This is a decision we get to make as a species. Right now we're leaving it to a bunch of white male tech billionaires in Silicon Valley. Seems like a dumb thing to do. But in general, these are our questions, right? How do we make use of AI without having AI replace us? I think that's a bigger question than security, but yes. Oh, wow. Isaac asked about CAs. I don't want to answer a CA question, but Isaac's right that the CA system isn't that great and we could use something better. Man, a lot of problems with it. It's hacked a bunch of times. Governments hack it. Criminals hack it. Something better is hard to come by. And right now, browsers decide. There's certificate pinning where Google decides, which CAs are good and which aren't. Right? They're doing it because nobody else was doing it. It's not a bad choice of who gets to decide, but you ask a very good question I don't have a good answer to. Brianna asked about a lawsuit against the NSA about post-quantum crypto and backdoors. I don't think so. Yeah, there was stuff about Kyber, but I don't think it was NSA shenanigans. Do you ever see a future in which RSA and ECC encryptors are no longer useful? Ever is a long time. Certainly possible, no time soon. And that's the quantum future that could happen, right? That quantum computers break these algorithms completely. I think it's unlikely in the near term, but certainly possible. I'm now picking and choosing questions. What about deep fakes? How to solve this problem when all history will be digital? Separate true from false events. How will humanity be able to trust what has really happened when all is digital? I don't know. It's a good question you're asking. My guess is, so right now, detection technologies are trailing creation technologies. That might not always be true. And certainly, I think looking back at history, we will have better detection technologies for past creation technologies. But there's an arms race here. It's not clear who wins. I don't think we're going to have a world where, nobody trusts what really happened. Already we trust based on pedigree, not based on image. We trust because the New York Times published it, right? Not because the photograph is verifiable. So I don't think we lose that. So my guess is this is more social than we're giving it credit for, but we'll see. All right, last question. I'm going to look for a good one. Quick question, is the advances of cryptography and privacy the mercy of the market? Everything is at the mercy of the market. That's the way we built our world, right? If you don't like that, we should fix that. The amount of stuff happening outside the market is minimal.
My last question is...
All right, you get the last question.
Yeah, you're obviously passionate about education. How do you see AI changing the face of education? Has it changed? Have you changed your lecturing style, or your assessment methods? And how do you think you'll change in the future?
So I'll give a couple things. So I tell my students that I want them to use AI in their writing. That AI is the future of everything they're going to write from now on, and they might as well get used to it. But I tell them that your writing is yours. If there's plagiarism, it's your plagiarism. If there's a fact that isn't true, it's your misstated fact. Use the tools, but they are tools for you. And treat it like you would like some not very good assistant. And I think that's what we have to do, right? I mean, I use it all the time, but I don't trust it implicitly. And nowadays it's really good at citing references. So I always check references. So that's how I'm using it with my students. I think there's going to be enormous value in AI as a teacher. That instead of that's 4, maybe 5. And instead of reading a dry textbook, we're going to be able to engage with the material conversationally. And whether that is, my books and me on cryptography, or a history text or a physics text, that having a personal tutor that is tuned to your level of skill will be transformative. And that's actually not that hard. So I see huge value in AI as tutor that we're going to see relatively soon. It doesn't replace us, but it augments us in ways that I think are really good. So that's one place I am optimistic with AI, that it can do that it can bring personalized education to everybody.